Hey, welcome, folks. Once again, another edition of Boxing Chit, Joshua City Brewer. I'm holding it down here with Boz. He's across the pond, as I always say, more so across the Atlantic. But anyway, how's it been, Boz?
Yeah, it's pretty nice now. I mean, the weather is getting, the winter is slowly going away. So yeah, it's been a sunny day today, and yeah.
Cool, cool. Yeah, we have spring popping up here. The cherry blossoms of DC are in full
Mm,
bloom, so it makes it
wow,
very attractive. But the pollen
nice.
count is way up as well, so allergies kick in for many.
Well,
But
yeah,
anyway,
oof, I have a pretty bad case of that.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you wouldn't want to be here right about now for sure.
no, yeah, it comes in my eyes and my nose and my throat. It's terrible, oof, terrible.
Oh yes, oh yes. Anyway, we're here to talk boxing, of course. We know that the year has kicked off fairly well. We've had a number of pretty solid fights. We had a number of fights early in this first portion of the career that are considered fight of the year candidates. And we'll see how things continue to play out. But with what went down yesterday, the highlight of the night was, of course, the big fight across the pond in the O2 Arena, which featured Anthony Joshua, former world heavyweight champion holding three belts, making his return since his last defeat to or at the hands of Alexander Usyk. So he took on Jermaine Franklin, heavyweight from America, out of Michigan. I forget exactly the location, but
Right.
he's one who has come onto the scene as of late, starting with his loss to Dillian White several months back, even though many felt he deserved a nod there. So this was intended to be a bounce back fight for Anthony Joshua, with him getting an opportunity to get back in the win column, which he was able to accomplish over 12 rounds. But the performance still leaves some questions and some things to be desired. So, what did you think of the overall fight, Boz, and how Anthony Joshua handled the situation?
Well, I thought he looked pretty kind of cautious and what's the other word I'm looking for? He was a little bit, gun shy at first. He landed some nice punches, but not that many. And in the first 6 rounds, I thought he was pretty, gun shy. Maybe that's the right word. And yeah, well, Franklin is usually just poured it on, and was very aggressive. But he doesn't have the power, so as we already spoke about, he still did kind of manage to bloody the nose of Joshua actually in the third round, and but then after that, Joshua started coming on a little bit more, and eventually he did win. And in the last couple rounds, he was very aggressive, but Franklin is a tough cookie, and he must have been a street fighter probably in his youth because
Mhm.
he's so tough. He took some big ones, there. But yeah, it wasn't an impressive performance by any means by Joshua. He just did what he had to do to win, So I call it a laborious performance, like a workman, like as they say.
Yeah.
So I didn't really score the fight, but I thought probably he won by I don't know 3 rounds. I don't know 4. It's difficult because many rounds were close. Also, so
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't look. I mean, I wasn't impressed. It looks like he has lost a lot of his killer instinct. And I don't have really high hopes for him in the future against guys like Fury or Wilder or yeah, those those would be pretty much the big names. Or even Joyce. Well, I think Joyce would probably knock him out actually,
Oh
if we're
yeah. Yeah,
being
I think that's a
serious.
high possibility without a doubt there because Joe Joyce has really come into form and we know he has a ironclad chin. which certainly will be a factor.
Yeah.
Now, I was able to watch the fight, of course, and I scored the fight myself. I ended up having it 116, 112 in
Yeah.
favor of Anthony Joshua. Now,
Mm.
I know some others watched it and they felt that it probably was a bit closer, and I can
Maybe
see
yeah.
that because
Yeah.
some rounds were fairly even over the course of
Yeah.
the fight. So I could certainly see some having Joshua won or winning more rounds than what I gave him. Now, I did give Jermaine Franklin some credit for some of the work that he was doing and some of the big shots he was able to land that
Yeah.
ended up being bigger than what Joshua was throwing in some of the rounds. Now, Joshua was working behind a jab, and his jab was fairly effective. It was snapping Franklin's head back there in the early part of the fight, or in the middle portion of the fight, I would say. And I thought that he did what he had to do as far as trying to keep Franklin at a distance using that jab and not giving him an opportunity to really get in and get off those fast punches because he seemed to be Franklin that is faster than Joshua. It was just
Mm.
a matter of course, he had to overcome a lot of size because I guess Franklin was around 225 or somewhere in that nature,
Mm.
and Joshua, of course, came in at 255 pounds.
Yeah.
And the later portion of the fight was marred by a good deal of holding, and I'm sure that that was draining Franklin as well because Joshua was surely making sure to stay on him, and I know that
Mm.
took a lot of energy out of him. But he did have a decent showing for what was put in front of him. The stage doesn't seem to be too big for Franklin. He just came up short on this night for sure. But as you
Mm.
mentioned, he was able to bloody Joshua's nose in the first round, so it wasn't without action. There were some spurts
Yeah.
of action, so I think that it was a generally a good win for Anthony Joshua, especially coming off of back-to-back losses against a tough fighter who I'd imagine we'll see again in there with someone of note.
Mm. Yeah, I think Franklin may have some. I mean, it's not like he doesn't have any power at all. He does have some pop, I would say, but the way he throws those punches, they're fast, sharp punches, but they are not thrown the way, to one usually throws to really achieve maximum power. I guess maybe I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There wasn't a ton of snap on Franklin's punches, but he did do well. He was able to land some stuff, some pretty big
yeah,
shots, but nothing that ever truly hurt Joshua, I would say. And shout out
yeah.
to Duran Roberto who says, "Good evening, gentlemen. Appreciate having you here,
Amen.
buddy." Uh,
Amen.
yeah, yes, indeed. We appreciate having you here. Thank you. Definitely enjoyed the dialogue and look forward to the discussion. We're talking Joshua Franklin. So Duran Roberto mentions Franklin did all right, came out with credibility. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I think he did do pretty well, given the stage. Of course, traveling to the O2 Arena, being over there in the UK, so
Yeah.
he didn't whittle at the moment, despite some of the commentary, which I know a lot of people complained about in relation to the zone. It was Chris Algieri and Todd Grisham. Now, they weren't giving Franklin a lot of credit for some of the work that he was doing, but I think he definitely did some work. He made Joshua work for it, and as mentioned, bloodied his nose. So, thinking about such, as you mentioned, we talked about Joshua and what could be next for him. So after the fight, that was a point of question. So I know Joshua wants to be back in by summer. Some of the names that were got thrown out there, of course, are Tyson Fury, which is probably the least likeliest of them to be made. But we also had
Well,
mention of Deontay Wilder and Dillian White,
hmm.
who was there in attendance. And I think that Dillian White and Anthony Joshua, just given the history, would make for a fairly compelling fight. But Joshua wants the big fight. So what do you think
Yeah.
on him facing either of the three?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see him fight Fury or Wilder, of course. I mean, I don't know. Wilder may be slightly the more winnable fight, because Fury is
Yeah,
bigger and so tough, and yeah, I mean, it would take. And you can, I mean, I don't think Joshua can win in a boxing match against Fury, either. He's not that good technically, so it's it's a fight that is hard for him to win simply. While Wilder, it is a risky fight because of the power, of course, that Wilder has, but
hmm
still, other things. I think Joshua, all in all, I mean, is a little, at least a little better than Wilder in, when it comes to
yeah,
boxing, and also, well, so some other things. Maybe, I don't know, his defense, maybe also. Yeah,
yeah. He would offer up more opportunities for
yeah.
Joshua. It would be a matter
And
of
what? Yeah, and White. No, I don't think that would be very good. I mean, maybe it would, as long as it would last. I mean, I know White would come out for, probably not like he did against Fury. He would come out swinging, but I don't think he will last very long, like 4 or 5 rounds, maybe six. So yeah,
yeah, Duran Roberto says, "Hope it's not white." Yeah,
yeah.
that would be an interesting one for sure. Now,
Me too.
now Joshua. So I'd imagine he'd open up against White. He didn't really open up a ton against Franklin, but of course he and White have had some bad blood in the past. But I know they're
Yeah,
cordial and all of that. So maybe he'd open up against White. I know that will probably be the easiest of them to make, given that he is with Matchroom and all. So that could be the one that ultimately materializes. But I'm with you. I would love to see the Deontay Wilder fight, and as you mentioned, I do think that Wilder would make it very interesting because of his lack of the overall fundamental skills or the more
yeah,
conventional skills that we see with boxers. He does things a bit unconventionally as far as throwing his shots. Some of them can be wide and coming
mm,
from long distance. But that being said, when they land, they tend to land with authority. And Anthony Joshua, of course, he's been dropped multiple times. Now it will be a matter of how his chin holds up. But I think that Deontay Wilder would certainly be one that would, in all likelihood, force him to go back to that Klitschko version of Joshua, that previous Dillian White version of Joshua that was really in the version that was going against Andrew Ruiz in the first fight
mm,
before he got clipped himself, who would open up and really lay in two fighters.
yeah.
But yeah, it'd be interesting as well. And then Roberto mentions didn't gas out. White would try to chin him and then gas out. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
certainly a likely scenario there as far as Dillian White is concerned. But yeah, the Fury fight, of course, I know we've talked about. It's been long rumored to have been made. It's been a fiasco as far as getting anything done with Fury over the last several months. Now we'll see what he does from here. He seemingly is open. The Usyk fight isn't happening, so the calendar should be open. So maybe that's one that can be made, and I'm sure it will sell fairly well there in the UK or Saudi Arabia is probably a place they would take it to get the most bang for their buck as far as what they're shelling out for big fights over there. So very
Yeah.
interesting outlook.
I'm not really a fan of these fights they arrange in Saudi Arabia. I mean,
Yeah.
for, for crying out loud, they gonna make Ben versus Eubank after all over there, because
Oh,
they know that over here everybody would object, but over there it's like they're just happy to have a fight like that, to arrange a fight between such famous boxers. And that's so wrong. But yeah, they're over there. It's a little bit different, culture. The
yeah,
lines are
Saudi.
more
Yeah,
blurred.
yeah, yeah. It's the new kind of getaway spot now for
Yeah.
big time boxing matches. But certainly, yeah, that a lot of fans can't actually,
Mm.
make that trip there. Just thinking about it, a lot of the general fans that are interested, and
Mm.
who support the sport, especially thinking about the UK fans.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
yeah,
Fury,
it's interesting.
his father said that they will also be doing a lot of work or doing his fights in Dubai, and also you got
Oh yeah,
Badu Jack fighting there, living there, like
oh
now,
yeah,
for good, and so it's becoming a bit. I don't like it. I don't want Dubai or any other place like that to become the new boxing haven, let's call it, or boxing. Yeah, for lack of better word, well, like a
yeah,
boxing mecca, So
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah. It's
and,
certainly not a fan-friendly location because
no,
we, of course, can't afford to shell out money to fly to Dubai, and of course, thinking about hotel stay, depending on how long,
yeah,
etc.
there are certain religious rules. I mean, because I have noticed these fights never happen on Saturdays, so it seems to be like it's forbidden to hold these arrangements on Saturdays. It's either Fridays or Sundays that they are. I
Yeah,
don't know why.
yeah, there are definitely different customs and things of that nature that differ from a lot of the locations we typically see them. So that has to be factored in. But I guess the thing is, as they say, money talks. So that has made the likes of Eddie Hearn, etc., not shy to travel over there and make something
Yeah,
happen. So we'll probably see
it's
more, especially considering the pay-per-view market and all. We've seen a lot of pay-per-views once again. Yeah, it's one of those things. Boxing is kind of going back to that model as far as anything big has seemingly been moved to pay-per-view. Though we still have streaming services and they offer a lot of great fights. It's just that you would have thought it would have slowed down the pay-per-view process, but it hasn't. And I think that they're probably trying to make up a lot of the money that probably isn't theirs off of solely streaming fights. So that has to be factored in.
yeah. I mean, Eddie Hearn, he actually did have, of course, a contract with Sky Sports, and then that fell apart. And that's the result now. People in Europe can't watch some of the best European fights if they don't have Sky Sports.
Yeah,
I think that's so unfair, that's bloody unfair because
yeah,
everybody outside UK, well, there are some other channels, but they are like these very like I don't know channels where you have to pay a lot for a subscription and
yeah,
sport channels, and it's not always the same one that gets to show that fight.
yeah,
It's
right.
like purse video. So
Yeah, and unlike the some of the other sports, with boxing, of course, you have to have multiple subscriptions to see some of the bigger fighters that are with these varying promotional groups because everyone seems to have their own deal with a different network or whatnot. So we want to see Matchroom, you have to have a subscription to the Zone. Same with Golden Boy fighters generally. You want to see top ranked fighters, ESPN. So you need that ESPN subscription or at least ESPN Plus. If you want to see PBC, they'll have some stuff on Fox, or you need Showtime to actually watch it. And then a bunch of other stuff that is just kind of thrown in the mix there. So it is different from the other sports in that you'll have a channel like a Fox or something that is generally gonna carry great games regardless of the team and their location. So boxing definitely has its own ways in which it works and all. And real quick, Duran Roberto says, "Don't get me wrong, I liked White up to the Fury fight. He deserves his chance. Often been overlooked by the relevant governing bodies, etc." I agree with you there. I think that
yeah,
Dillian White, yeah, that title shot was, I guess, fairly overdue considering he had been putting in a lot of work and waited a long period of time for Fury. I wish he would have put in a stronger effort, of course, but that didn't happen. I always wanted to see White versus Wilder, and I actually at one point favored White over Wilder, neither as technically sound, but I thought that he would have an opportunity to swing some of his punches and catch Wilder in the same fashion that Wilder would do with him.
Hmm. Well, I think people forget that White is still was always
Yeah,
rather one dimensional, because
see,
I mean his probably greatest victory was over Joseph Parker, but that one is
yeah,
also kind of controversial and very close fight. And Parker just wasn't really fighting his best fight here, and yeah, he's a strong guy. He can punch and tough guy and all that, but I don't think
yeah,
he ever was, on the same level as Joshua or Fury or even I don't know. Well, yeah, even Wilder in a sense because Wilder is just he doesn't have Wilder's power anyway. That's for sure.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you know,
certainly.
yeah.
Certainly, and that's what makes it interesting, you know. So real quick, we're gonna segue to this hot mess of a story, as Duran Roberto put in the chat. Just been watching Roy Jones Jr. He boxed last night at the ripe old age of 54. Yeah, I saw that. I was gonna talk about that. So Roy Jones Jr. made his return to the ring. Now, I didn't see the. I saw that he was actually fighting, but I didn't see the fight in itself. Really don't care to see it. But he was taking on Anthony Pettis, who is a MMA fighter, I guess turned boxer right now. He's competing in MMA at the moment.
Oh,
But he boxed Roy Jones last night, who was apparently licensed at 54. Now, I didn't think it was a legit fight or a real fight, but apparently
yeah.
it was treated as a real fight in some capacity. But he ended up losing a decision. I'm sure that Anthony Pettis is 10 plus years his junior. I had to look up his age, but I know that Anthony Pettis, yeah, is certainly younger. And Jones, of course, is a good bit of time removed from his glory days, especially if you think about when he was actually really good or great. And that's been since at least 2003, 2004 time frame. So he's back. He was back in the ring. Took a loss. I don't know what to make of it. Or
Yeah.
what happens next for him?
54, I believe that was the age that Ron Lyle was when he retired, and I don't think anybody fought longer than that. I mean, in history, was there anybody who fought past that age? I'm not so sure, but
Yeah, I know there was some guy who was in, I think, prison or something like that for a long period of time in recent years,
yeah,
and came back and did like one fight or something like that.
yeah, yeah, it
I
was
think he
like
was
that,
somewhere in
that
that
age,
range, but
yeah,
not as notable,
53.
of course, as a Roy Jones Jr., who
Yeah, so
was,
maybe he's trying to break the world record
yeah,
there, become the oldest man to have boxed ever.
yeah, it's
I
crazy to
don't
think about.
I really don't know what's his motivation for taking these fights. Obviously, not a true fight, as you said. It's just, a charade. Actually, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
he might as well fight somebody. I don't like him. Call out Butterbean to come out of retirement.
right, right. We're talking Roy Jones Jr., who at one point was the unquestioned pound for pound best fighter in the world. And
and,
of
and
course,
now,
we're
isn't he
real
now?
confounded to tell him.
He's a Russian citizen, isn't he now?
Yeah, right, yeah.
That's so weird. Yeah, it's so
Mhm.
weird. But I think he just became that so they could give him that license, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he, yeah,
The worst reason to become a citizen of a country, I think.
was he in Russia when he got knocked out by Denis Lebedev? Lebedev?
Yeah, he was knocked out by Lebedev, I think. Yeah, he was also no, not Macarnelli, that other
Yeah,
Danny Green.
Macarelli knocked him out too. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Macarelli
he did
knocked him out.
too.
Some of
Danny
everybody knocked
Green,
him out at this point. Alan Green,
1 round.
one round, yeah. And
Yeah.
these were some knockouts where he was falling flat, face first on the canvas type stuff, you know. So it's pretty
Mm.
crazy that he's back in there. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. I know he was a part of ProBox TV, which is this newer streaming platform that I subscribe to. It's pretty good, and they have a number of fights there. It's it's one that has been around for, I would say, a little bit over a year, or maybe more now. But
Mm.
I haven't seen Roy on there as of late. He used to be on there at least in the podcast along with Antonio Tarver,
But
following out with
yeah,
Jahi. But I've only seen Pollard there as of late.
yeah, that's right.
So I don't know if Roy and Tarver are no longer a part of the team or whatever. But also Juan Manuel Marquez is also a part of that Pro Box TV
But
group.
yeah, that's the one. I think I caught their broadcast of the last weekend's big fight.
Yeah,
Which
they
one?
had Jarrell Miller or Coley was on there. Jarrell Miller's fight with
Yeah,
him.
Coley, yeah. That dreadful fight,
So it looks like
Warfest.
that. Yeah, yeah. So they have had more fighters who are lower tier as far as the public knowledge of a number of these fighters, but they have had some very good fighters that have participated on there. Now it seems like they're reaching out and grabbing more. So Coley, that's a big name as far as cruiserweight, but of course we know the cruiserweight division isn't a huge division globally as
You
far
know
as
what?
known names.
I was when people were talking because I heard of Coley talking about how he plans to move up to heavyweight eventually. And
Yeah,
I was like, no, he shouldn't do that. But now I say, I wish he would move up right now because
right.
there he would be, I hope, less boring, because now he's fighting those guys who are much shorter and all he does is like grab and clinch and jab. And
Yeah, he had
it's
an ugly fight.
terrible.
I hadn't checked it out. Maybe I'll check
Oh,
out the
man.
highlights or whatever. But I gotta kind of, my
I mean,
imagination kind of showed me what his probably looked like. Yeah,
he calls himself the Sauce, and I think a better nickname for him it could be, I don't know, the Powder or something.
yeah, right. Yeah, he definitely had some sloppy fights at times. So,
Or
I want to
Glue,
see him
maybe.
in there with a legit challenger, and then maybe that will kind of make
Yeah.
him fight a little bit better. Like when he
Yeah.
took on Blavatsky, he looked good in that fight. We need to
Yeah,
see
but
more of that though.
Kowalski was,
Every fight
shot.
since then has been bad.
Yeah, Kowalski was well past his prime already.
Yeah, certainly.
That was very obvious. He just the way he was knocked out also too easily. He was much tougher earlier.
Yeah, he had been going at it for a good minute. So yeah, you're right in that
Just
regard. Now, Duran Roberto says Butterbean was once known as the 4-round world champion, if I remember correctly.
or
Yes,
6th round maybe.
king of the 4-rounders, king of it. Yeah, old Butterbean. He was able to make a name for himself in the sport.
Eric Ash.
Eric Esch. Some would consider him more of a novelty act, but he was running through a bunch of guys for sure, especially club level fighters. So you couldn't just run up on them. I tell you that.
5'11", but weighed like 350 pounds.
Prime
30,
Butterbean versus Prime Gerald Miller, 4-rounder. I wonder who wins that.
That would be just a lord fest. Them bouncing off each other.
I'm sure it would be crazy. It would get ugly, without a doubt, in that fight.
There would be a lot of messy knockdowns and stuff.
Oh yes. All right. So thinking about that card from last night in the zone, the Matchroom card, I wanted to mention that our guy Fabio Wardley was back in action, taking John Coffey, or is that his name? Coffee Polite?
Polite coffee.
This first name, Michael. I'm thinking
as
John
I call him,
Green Mile.
Yeah, I call him Polite Espresso.
Yeah, right. But yeah, Michael Coffey, who came in 13-2.
Big guy.
Been in with some decent heavyweights. He's been in with Jonathan Rice. I think that's who beat him maybe both times.
He was like 13-3, something. Oh, I think.
But yeah, he's a more defensive fighter, but he'll let his heads go in spurts. And he and Wardley were doing so. I like Wardley. I thought he looked good. He was really trying to take the fight to Coffey, who certainly was more on the defensive, trying to use his shoulder roll to stave off any punches and things coming from Wardley. Now, in the 4th round, Wardley caught him with a big shot, and then Wardley started to tee off a bit. A lot of them missed, but there were some that got through and hit Coffey, that is, and the referee ended up stepping in to stop the fight in what
Hmm.
many, myself included, could call premature. But
Yeah.
that being said, coffee, of course, you need to protect yourself at all times. So from the referee's angle, from what he saw, it
Yeah.
looked like he was in distress. But what did you think?
Yeah, it did look kind of premature, but as you said, yeah, he wasn't really defending himself well or anything. And he did complain when the referee stopped it, but then right after
Yeah,
that, then you could see him smiling and talking to Worley. He didn't look too angry to me.
yeah, yeah.
So
Now,
yeah, it was. But he
yeah,
did rather well. I mean, he landed some good shots before that coffee, and
yeah,
I don't like the way Worley, what he does. He waits too long and takes too many punches too often, and
yeah.
just I don't know why he risks it because he thinks these guys can hurt me or whatever. But he was hurt by Molina and by that
Gorman.
guy Gorman. Yeah, yeah, cut up badly by Gorman. Even
Yeah, yeah,
and
he took some shots. That was a good fight for those that haven't seen it.
yeah,
Wardley versus Gorman. You want to see a little slug
yeah.
test? That was a good one.
But once he gets started, I mean, he's pretty hard to keep off you. That's for
Yeah,
sure. He's got the speed also, but I don't like entirely the way he moves around. Sometimes kind of doesn't look very good to me. I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, he,
So
he will have to work on that definitely.
yeah, he's been stepping up the competition as of late, at least, and I think we'll continue to see the competition rise. I think overall, certainly he did well, but yeah, as you mentioned, he did take some shots, and I think he was really pressing, really bringing it to Coffee offensively, and Coffee, of course, can
Hmm.
be awkward, or yeah, he's bringing it to Coffee offensively, but yeah, Coffee can be awkward. As mentioned, he employed some version of a shoulder roll for defense, and he doesn't throw a ton of shots, so Worley had to do a lot of leading, but they did have a few exchanges. But
Hmm.
Worley will certainly have to tighten up that defense because, yeah, taking some of those bigger shots from bigger punchers can certainly do its damage to him. But I do like the trajectory he's on. I know we've seen a number of his fights and we've talked about him a number of times before as him potentially being one of those guys who could be one of the key names in the heavyweight division within the next year or two. And I like what I
Yeah.
saw. I think he certainly is showing more promise than Johnny Fisher thus far. Even though Johnny Fisher, I do like Johnny Fisher, but I think in Johnny Fisher's last fight, of course, yeah, he had a tough opponent in there, and it didn't look he didn't look as good as I guess one might have expected. I think Johnny is still continuing to improve,
Hmm.
but later down the road, maybe that's a fight we see Johnny Fisher versus
Yeah.
Fabio
I
Wortley.
was.
But I think Fabio is probably at least a year ahead of him right now, so it might not
Yeah.
happen anytime soon.
And I was thinking about that, but I think Worley is so much faster. Fisher is slow, definitely.
Yeah,
Right now, he's too slow. He's not very, not, his punching accuracy isn't that great yet,
yeah,
also.
and that's what he suffered the last fight. Yeah, his accuracy
Yeah,
was all over the place for sure. He
yeah,
was throwing some shots that were
e-
going all over
exactly.
the place.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why he should not be moved up anytime soon, of course.
Yeah,
He must fight like 10 more fights, or he's got 7 or 8, I think now. He
yeah,
needs at least like 10 fights or something like that, before he is brought up, moved up in class.
yeah.
I'm
They've been
still so,
gradually moving him up. He's been in with some,
yeah.
like I said, tough guys, but certainly no world beaters. So it'll be interesting.
Mm,
And now that I think about it, yeah, Worley might be probably like 2 years ahead of him actually.
yeah.
So I can see
He
it
is.
happening. Yeah, a little bit later down the road potentially.
Yeah, so if they fall, I don't think Fisher will do that well, of course,
Yeah,
because of the great speed advantage of Wallace and the power, of course, that he has. So I think Worley may not. I mean, he does hit hard, but he doesn't hit so hard. It's more that he's got the speed,
yeah,
which
right.
that really does a trick. So
And he seemingly can take a punch. We haven't seen such a Fisher yet. Not that he can't, but he hasn't been in there with anyone that has been a true threat.
Yeah,
So we'll see as he continues to progress, of course, how Fisher looks when thrown in the mix. And real quick, I want to shout out to my mom. Good evening, son and Boz. Happy Sunday, she says. Happy Sunday to you, mother. Good
happy
evening for
Sunday.
sure. Appreciate having you here. We're talking boxing, of course. We're on the heavyweight division. The big fight yesterday was Anthony Joshua versus Jermaine Franklin, and of course, we're talking Fabio Wardley now. Fabio Wardley is one of the top younger heavyweights that is coming up. He's kind of a prospect, or a little bit past the prospect, but certainly not at that world level yet. But I think pretty soon he's going to be knocking on the door. Probably by the end of this year, next year, he's going to be knocking on the door of some of those top level guys, at least top 20 guys, top 15 guys potentially. So look forward to that.
He does have his detractors, but I think he just needs to work a little bit on the defense as well, on movement. So he'll be fine, I think.
Oh yeah, good to go. Real quick, shout out to Jonathan as well. He says, "Hey, cuz, it's Jonathan, your favorite cousin. Salute, brother. Hey, likewise, buddy. It's good hearing from you. Definitely looking forward to seeing you. You know, you have to make that trip up here to DC, without a doubt. So, good stuff. Good hearing from you.
Hello, Arkansas. He's in Arkansas, right?
Yeah, Arkansas, Texas. Hold down the fort down that way, so appreciate having you here. But yeah, we're talking Fabio Wardley. He got a good win. So we'll see what he does here moving forward. Also on this very same card, we had the return of one of the Yahi brothers, the one who I think is probably the most promising at the moment.
Yahi.
Jalal.
No,
Jalal Yahi.
Jamal.
Yeah, and I like him. I think he's probably
that was
at least at this stage, and he looks fairly promising.
That was a good knockout.
He looks like a very he is a very skilled boxer without a doubt, and he's starting to put things together. This was an opponent who came in 30. His opponent, his name is Caleros. Actually, it's Moises Caleros. He came in 36-10-1, so he's been around the block a few times. A Japanese opponent, and Yahi, of course, he was 3-0, but he handled it well. He looks to be the goods thus far. We'll continue to see how he progresses, but he seems like a guy they're going to fast track to a certain degree because I think he is skilled enough. I believe he was a very good amateur as well, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why he has the backing that he does. I don't know if you're able to catch that one, but
I was. I was able to catch when the first fight that I watched on that card was Campbell Hatton destroying that. I don't know what's his name.
I saw that too.
1.5 minutes. That was pretty nice.
I was like, hold up, is that Campbell?
Yeah, he's learned how to punch. It's amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
No, his father also had a pretty hellacious body punch. Yeah, left hook, that left to the body, boom.
Without a doubt. Shout out, Jonathan says, definitely got to come visit the DC area. Come on. We're happy to have you. It'll be cool. So look forward to it, without a doubt. Galal Yahi, he was a 2020 gold medalist at flyweight in the Olympics. And of course, he won a number of other amateur titles as well. So, he's a very decorated fighter. So I think that he will continue to progress, and he's going to be one of those guys that we have to watch out for here in the future because he's going to be in that title contention, I'd imagine, here very soon. Probably sooner than later, I would say, more so than anything. So he's a flyweight, and of course, we know flyweight generally has a bunch of good fighters. Maybe down the road, we'll see him and Bam Rodriguez or something which I'd imagine would be excellent on the technical side, and then just thinking about them offensively. But we'll see
Mm.
how the progression comes, though. We will certainly see.
Yeah. Yeah, Britain now has quite many young talents. I mean, you have Dan. Dan Aziz. Yeah, I was thinking of Adam Azim. Adam Azim. I really like him so far. He's kind of
Yeah,
like Amir Khan, only with better power, I think.
yeah. He has looked
And
good.
chin. Yeah,
Yeah,
really
so,
big guy for his weight class. Yeah,
and then as you were mentioning, Campbell Hatton, of course, he's a name,
yeah,
so we're going to continue to
Campbell.
see him regardless of who he's fighting. And he did
Yeah,
do his thing. He destroyed his opponent that he was in there with, as you mentioned. He's
yeah.
slowly progressing. Didn't have much of an amateur career, so they have
Mm.
to make
Pretty
sure.
much like his old man. I think Ricky started as a pro when he was still 18 or 19, something.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I know he started in 97 and he's born in 78, so yeah. Right.
okay.
So this guy was called Louis Fielding, right? All right.
Oh yeah, Fielding. I thought it was Rocky Fielding there for a second.
No, kind of a little too big for for Campbell.
Shoot. Oh yeah. But yeah, good stuff from Campbell. We'll see how he continues to develop, and I'm sure his name will be out there as we proceed forward. So also I was just looking to see who are some other ones. I didn't catch all the stuff. I know John Hedges got a win, so that's good. And looks like there were a few others who, of course, we mentioned Campbell, Peter Kadaru. I don't think I know him. Jurgen Udajaj or something of that nature. Looks like he was 15-0. He may have taken a loss in this particular fight. He's an Albanian.
Well, yeah, there was that guy, Joet
Gonzalez.
Gonzalez. He won, I saw, against Enrique Vivas on points. Joet, whatever his name.
All right. Well, yeah. Speaking of that, I guess we can get to that card. As a matter of fact, yes, this was the top ranked card, and this was headlined, of course, by Robeisy Ramirez taking on Isaac Doboe for a vacant WBO Featherweight Championship. It was at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But yeah, that was the headline. Co-main event featured Joet Gonzalez. I was thinking, but Joet Gonzalez, who has had opportunities in there a number of times as far as title shots or with some form of a title shot on the line, and he's come up short. So this was another opportunity, as they were saying in the broadcast, potentially his final opportunity. But he delivered. And he actually brought the fight to Rivas. He was a Mexican fighter and very much fought in a Mexican style where he came forward, head down, throwing punches the entire time. It's just that Joet Gonzalez chose to fight fire with fire, though he probably could have outboxed him. He chose to fight fire with fire to make it for a very interesting fight. And Joet won that battle. He actually had Rivas bruised and swollen, and I think that this puts him right there in line for getting another title shot. So it was a good win for Joet Gonzalez, and it was an action fight. They were bringing it, and I thought that Joet put on a good showing. He said, "Hey, this was his opportunity, and he seized advantage of it." So he's back in that win column. So we might see him in there again with some big name headlining it next time around.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say his last fight he lost to Dogboe, so that
right.
Yeah, interesting.
Who was actually in the main event. So maybe we'll see Joet taking on Ramirez at some point, because in the Dogboe versus Ramirez fight, it was Robeisy Ramirez, the decorated Cuban amateur. When we talk decorated, truly decorated, two-time Olympic gold medalist. He's definitely fundamentally sound, as with majority, if not all, of the Cuban fighters who come out. And he was able to defeat Isaac Doboe, who was game, but just a step behind. He did catch Robeisy Ramirez with some big shots in spurts, but Ramirez maintained distance on the outside, and it was hard for Dogboe to get in there because, of course, he was going to take a shot, get inside, and at points he found himself missing a number of shots wide. Dogboe is 5'4", and I know he had the shorter reach as well, so he did have trouble closing distance on Robeisy Ramirez, who, while he has some things he certainly has to work on as far as footwork and such, as they were pointing out in the broadcast. He is definitely a very sound boxer, and he has these added feints to his game, so you can tell that he knows what he's doing in there. And if he continues to develop, which I suppose he will, he's going to be a legit threat there at the top. And I think that he can be beaten. Of course, Dogboe, I don't believe, had the offensive arsenal to do so last night, but certainly Robeisy showed that he is a major player in the sport, especially there at featherweight. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here.
Yeah, he definitely is one of the also most exciting fighters at featherweight right now. And yeah, he was. I did expect him to win this fight. Simply he looks too strong right now for most fighters there at 126. And Dogboe, he was he is also definitely a world class fighter. I still think that he was never more than he was a B fighter always. So he just happened to get that world title, and he lost to Navarrete. And he's a tough guy, of course, but he's not some kind of A-level fighter, I would say. So he's just but he's very young still. He's only 28. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's 28. So he's been working with the Headbangers Gym out here in DC. Shout out Barry Hunter, Patrice Harris, Jamie, all the guys over there at Headbangers. But he's made some changes, of course, from what he previously was doing prior to that Navarrete fight, where I don't think his training was actually top tier. And so he made the move, dropped his father as his trainer, and took on Barry Hunter and crew. And certainly he has shown some good moments. He was on a 4-fight win streak, but I too felt that it would be tough sledding against Robeisy Ramirez because of his skill, and he's really coming into himself as a fighter at this particular point, Robeisy that is, and he's shown that he has the ability to get you out there. He can catch you with some stuff, and I think he's going to continue to improve somewhat, and we'll see what materializes from that. But for Dogboe, of course, he has to go to the drawing board. We'll see what he does. I don't think that moving up would have him fare any better, because generally when you move up, you're taking on bigger guys and, of course, bigger punchers. And so he is in a place where we're going to see. He said he wanted a rematch, which likely isn't going to happen. So I think he'll continue on, maybe continue to compete at featherweight and see if he can work himself back into the mix again.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a close fight. I mean, it wasn't a very close fight, so there is no need for a rematch, right? So, I mean, he was beaten by beyond doubt, I guess.
I think I had
he was also dropped, I was going to say, in the last round.
Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah. He was dropped. He said it was more of a slip, and there was some slippage, but that being said, it was still a knockdown. A punch did land. So they counted it, of course. Now, what was I going to mention? I was going to mention something that I forgot all of a sudden. But anyway, we'll see how he does. But for Robeisy Ramirez, that opens up things as far as the featherweight landscape. Real quick shout out to Jahi. He says, "Peace. Jahi is gonna get knocked out eventually. I don't think he won last night. Salute Hyphy. Salute Hyphy.
Who's that?
Jahi Tucker. Now that's the fight I was gonna mention. Yeah, I will say, Hyphy, that I thought Jahi was having a meltdown there in the first round. I was like, man, he is taking these shots. He's just being cleanly hit. So I thought he was having a meltdown and he was about to crumble. But he, of course, bounced back and chose to fight fire with fire. But he was getting tagged all night, of course. And then eventually in those last few rounds, he came on a bit as far as landing more and landing some crisp shots on his opponent, who I'll have to look up to see what his name is, because I remember it was one I will have to look up to remember the pronunciation for it. But these two were gunning. So Jahi Tucker, he was a welterweight. He moved up to 154 pounds. This was his debut at 154 pounds. And at what Hyphy is mentioning, yeah, if you watch the fight, excuse me, I had to drink some water.
Take your time, yeah.
But yeah,
sometimes the throat gets dry when you talk a lot.
Yeah, right. But yeah, what Hyphy is mentioning, man, Jahi Tucker was eating some shots. And yes, I do agree. He's going to get knocked out if he continues to operate like that. Now, he was charged up in terms of the two had a lot of back and forth. They were going at it, and they were going at it in the fight. The referee had to break them up a number of times. Some hitting after he called break, hitting while he was breaking them up. It was crazy. He's almost lost control in some of those rounds. But Jahi eventually put it together. So, Hyphy, I had it 77-74 in Jahi's favor. But that being said, I could see him losing too, as you mentioned, though, because man, he was eating some shots left and right, and he's gonna have to tighten up that defense because I don't think he's gonna be able to walk through all punchers who are coming at him like that. So very interesting. Right. He's one to check out, Boz. I don't know if you caught him or whatever, but
no, I didn't watch that. I rarely catch those American cards live, especially.
Oh yeah. But yeah, he's one of these prospects who is on the come up, and he's looking to be that next star. So he was taking on a guy by the name of Nicholas. Let me see how you say this. Setniashvili. Yeah, Setniashvili.
Oh yeah, Georgia. He must. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You're right. You're spot on. He's from Georgia.
Yeah. I know. Only they have such last names.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He had taken a loss to Guido Scram, which is an Argentine fighter, and but that aside, man, he came in storming, ready to go. He's a tough guy as well. Both of them were cool. Were dishing out and taking huge shots. Those Sexniavila or Sexniavili. He wasn't giving Jahi any slack, without a doubt. So Hyphy says Jahi equals average defense, no power.
Just call him S. Really. It's easier.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel you, Hyphy. Yeah, he definitely will have to tighten up that defense. I don't think he's going to be able to do that with everybody. And I can only imagine, but yeah, he needs to tighten that up. And I do think that his opponent had the bigger shots, of course, the shots that were like making me say, oh my goodness. So I will say Jahi, he's shown that he has a chin because he was taking some big punches and he continued to move. So that is definitely one worthwhile right there. So I was going to mention, there were a lot of prospects on display last night. And Jahi wasn't the only one. You also had Tiger Johnson in the mix. Now, Tiger Johnson, he was in tough in what I thought was a very good matchup as far as he had an opponent who was there to challenge him without a doubt. So Tiger Johnson, he was taking on, let me see.
Tiger Johnson, a very bombastic name.
Oh yeah, he was taking on Alfonso Oliveira, who is a fighter from Mexico who been in with some very good opposition. Many of it in losing efforts. That being said, he was a fighter who
Mm.
hadn't been stopped. He's been in with Josh Taylor, for instance, or been in there with Ryan Carl, Ivan Baranchik, Juan Heraldez. So he's been around the block for sure. Now, he's usually lost to undefeated prospects, and that was the case here against Tiger Johnson. But I thought that
Mm.
Tiger had to show some growth because he got caught in that first round with I believe it was a body. Was it a body shot? No. I think it was a shot to the head. But he got caught. You know, you can tell that he felt that one, and he had to get on the retreat for a little bit. But then he worked his way back into the fight. But Oliveira made it very tough for him. So I thought he got a good lesson in coming out of this fight last night. You also had the likes of excuse me. You also had the likes of Abdullah Mason, who is another young prospect, American prospect coming up. He was taking on Eric Benitez, caught him with a sharp right check hook. That man, it was super nice to see. It's one that if you haven't, you should try to catch it for sure. It was in the first round. The guy was coming in there storming, and it was a nice right check hook that caught him and sent him down and out. So Abdullah Mason looked good. And yeah, these prospects were on display last night. I think Top Rank has a
Mm.
number of top level prospects that will be interesting in the sport moving forward, without a doubt.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
And
yeah. I was just looking at the upcoming schedule of fights. Yeah, some good fights next weekend. Anyway, yeah. I don't know if you were planning to talk about that, but
yes, yes,
well,
I need to pull those up.
your boy, your guy Shakur Stevenson is fighting anyway
Oh yeah,
against Shuichiro Yoshino of Japan. I don't know this guy Yoshino. Is he good? I mean, he must be good, obviously, but how good is he in
it's,
your eyes?
he has a win over Ito, and he has a win over Yamanaka. Let me
Oh
see.
yeah, Shinsuke Yamanaka. Yeah, he was like,
Yeah, so he's pretty solid from all looks. So he should. I think he's undefeated, of course, and so he 16-0. Shakir is coming in 19-0. We know what Shakir is as far as being one of the
mm,
top level young boxers in the sport. He has
yeah.
that kind of pound for pound type pedigree. Shout out to
Oh,
Rodolfo Rivera Jr. How's it going, y'all?
yeah, Rodolfo.
We're good to go, Rodolfo. Appreciate having you here, buddy. It's been a minute.
Yeah,
Glad to see you in the mix. You know, we
great to see you
love
here.
to chat with you.
Even though a little late, but still better late than never, as they say here.
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, so we're talking about what's coming up. Shakir Stevenson versus Yoshino. That's going to be in Newark. Of course,
All right.
Shakir is now at 135. This is going to be a 12 rounder, and we'll see what Shakir is going to do because he's a very promising young fighter in the sport. And I know Andre Ward said he's looked good in camp. He's filling out. Of course, we've seen he's been dominant in his last few fights,
Yeah.
and I think that Yoshino should put up a valiant effort. But Shakir is one of those guys that is tough to look good against, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Of course, I favor Shakir Stevenson. I just think, excuse me,
Yeah.
as his trajectory is moving forward now,
He must
he's going to
be
be
a
tough.
favorite. Yeah. He also
He's
got
another special fighter to beat Shakir Stevenson.
yeah, definitely. He's got the skills for sure. And we also got Sebastian Fundora fighting against Brian Mendoza on in Carson, California.
Oh yeah. Also,
Mm,
Sebastian Findora is going to be making a return. Okay,
the
yeah.
machine.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. This is going to be on Showtime. I don't know if I know Mendoza. I have to look him up, but I like Sebastian Findora. We know he throws a ton of punches. He can
Yeah,
take damage. He's 6'6", pretty much as a as a junior middleweight, super welterweight,
yeah.
and he looks funny in there. But Man, he's
like a
because he doesn't use
basketball.
his size at all. He does not
Yeah,
use his size. He actually fights on the inside. He likes to be in the pocket, even though he's
yeah,
6'6",
and
and he's been towering over everyone.
that's what's most amazing about him. It's really that he doesn't fight on the outside, just jab, jab, and
Yeah,
yeah, he
right. So he
goes
goes
to
against the conventional thought process, but man,
yeah.
he does bring it. So he's tough because he throws a ton of punches. Then of course his with his length, and you just have to be able to keep up with him. You have to be able to box. You
Mm,
have to have good footwork, I believe, to be able to trouble Fundora.
yeah,
And it's fights, and it's
no,
two fights that were, I guess, where he had some adversity to a certain degree.
yeah,
Was
Lubin
of course Lubin dropped him,
and
back and
who?
forth, but he rebounded and he really messed up Lubin as far
Yeah,
as his facial uh, structure in terms of at the end of that fight. But it
and that
also,
was a great punch he took from Lubin also when he was dropped.
yeah. And then there's this fighter, Jermaine Clark, with
Oh
whom
yeah,
Fundora had a fight with, who, hey, he was able to show somewhat how you need to
was
fight.
that a draw?
I believe it was. I believe he might have. That's what I was
That's
going
his
to look up
only
to
blemish.
determine.
Yeah,
Because I
so
think it was. Yeah, so it was a draw. So yeah, Javante
yeah,
Clark, and
for
Javante
most
Clark,
people.
he's a guy who, of course, he had some promise or whatever. He's not like one of those guys who you would view as one of the top dogs. But of course, he can fight, he can box, and he can
Mm,
move pretty well. And that combination had Fedora in what was a close fight that many thought that Jermonte Clark might have deserved a nod on. Be as it may, it ended up being Fedora who continued on and has worked his way into one of the top three. Uh, I would say in or at 154 pounds. We want to see him in there with some other these top level
yeah,
guys. Of course, all the belts are held by Jermell Charlo at the moment, so he's probably not going to get a title fight right now because Charlo versus Tim Zoo seems to be the fight that is going to be next for him, and Fedora will just have to wait.
yeah, yeah. I think he and Team Two are pretty much around there. Yeah, I mean, the best so far I can see best contenders for Charles from
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I'd
strongest.
agree.
Uh,
Rodolfo Rivera says, looks like Jared Anderson is on the undercard against the top 40 heavyweight. Yes, indeed. The return of the real big baby, Jared Anderson. So, yeah, he's going to be
Turn
back
of
in
the
action
night.
on the undercard of that Shakur Steven fight. Jared Anderson, American heavyweight, who looks very, very promising. I would say of all the American heavyweights right now, he looks to be the most promising. He's taking on George Arias, who's a Dominican fighter who's coming in undefeated, and he's
Mm,
expected to be a pretty legitimate test for Jared Anderson at this particular stage. Now, Jared has some inches on him, being 6'4", while Arias is 5'11". So we'll see how things shape up. But
interesting.
Arias
Yeah.
can box. Dominicans usually, when you come out of there, get to the top. That means you
Mm,
were very solid fundamentally. So we'll see how Jared Anderson does as he looks to continue his impressive run as far as prospects are concerned, and stamping his name in the game. Also, Keyshawn Davis will be on the same card. He's going to be taking a step up fight, I would say, because this is Davis's, I want to say, his fourth fight or something of that nature, but he's going to be taking on Anthony Yigit.
Yiggy.
That name may be familiar to you. So this is the
Yeesh.
seventh fight. So this will be the eighth fight for Davis. He has been pretty fighting at a rapid pace since turning pro, but he's going to be in the mix there against Yigit, and Rodolfo Rivera. Will He says Yoshino ain't that bad of an opponent for Shakur's first fight at lightweight. Yep, not bad.
Yeah, it's lightweight. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
And Rodolfo mentions, and then Keyshawn Davis is fighting experienced fighter Anthony Gidget. Yeah, he is. And this should be a pretty good test for him because Keyshawn Davis, of course, is the top level amateur, and he seems to be on that fast track type trajectory. And with that, stepping up in his eighth fight to take Gidget that's a very solid fight to take. Now Gidget has fought for interim world title, losing to Rolando Romero, and he also fought for the IBF World Super Bantamweight title, or no, IBF World Super Lightweight title. Well, super as in the version, not him being a super lightweight, but super at. Oh no, I'm right. No, yeah, super 140 pounds. Yeah, so super lightweight, or some say junior welterweight. So I think that was a part of the World Boxing Series, as a matter of fact. So his only losses, Gidget, that is, are to Baranchik and Josh Taylor, which, of course, that's not bad when you speak about it. So we'll see what Keyshawn Davis is able to do. If he looks good and dominates, I think that volumes, you know.
Yeah, Gidget is a pretty good technical fighter, I think. And, but yeah, he's
Speed.
He lost actually to Rolly Romero. Yeah, that's the second loss. Yeah, maybe a little cheaply, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he did actually beat Sandor Martin. I didn't know that. That was in 2017.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. So that's a good win for sure.
Yeah, it would be a very good challenge for.
He's even been in there with Jamarcus Chop Corley, I see.
Yeah, he will certainly prove. I mean, he presents a serious challenge for a guy with only 7 fights, you know. So yeah,
I think against Baranchik, he had a super swollen right eye or something like that.
Yeah, that was an injury. You know, Baranchik is not such a hard puncher. He's just a guy who just goes at you until he breaks.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, so he was able to get that victory over him. Rodolfo Rivera says Gidget also fought Sandor Martin a while back. Yeah, the good stuff. Yeah, that is good stuff. So Gidget, good test for Keyshawn Davis, who, as mentioned, he's on his 8th fight, and he's stepping up to, I guess you could say, that world-class level. I mean, at least Gidget has been in that world-class discussion. So we'll see how he does. Troy Isley is going to also be fighting on there. Shout out Troy Isley, promising middleweight, who is out of this area as well. Out of the Alexandria Boxing Gym in Virginia, as a matter of fact, DC native. So Troy Isley, I'm looking to see him continue to impress. You have Bruce Shushu Carrington in action. So this will be a pretty good one. Pretty good little undercard that is tied to this as well. Again, it's going down in Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center. So we look forward to that card next week. Also, looks like on the Fundora card, Brandon Lee's going to be making his return as well.
Good, I like him.
Yeah, Brandon Lee has looked pretty solid. So he's going to be taking on Pedro Campa. This is somewhat of a step-up fight for him. So Lee was 27-0. Campa's coming in 34-2-1. Let me see who Campa has been in there with. Pedro Campa.
Yeah, Lee is really exciting fighter, like a knockout artist, and he really hasn't been a boring fight yet, as far as I have seen him.
Okay, so Campa, we will know him from being in there with Teofimo Lopez in 2022 on the 13th. So that's one of his losses, and then we lost to back in 2017 to Carlos Jimenez. But Campa should be interesting. We'll see how he handles it. How he being Brandon Lee handles his opponent. But Brandon Lee has shown that he is a very promising young fighter who is looking to make his stamp his name in the sport, and we could see him fighting for a world title potentially at some point in the future. Rodolfo
Yeah, and
Rivera was
he's a
that?
he's a tall guy for 140.
Oh yeah,
5'10" actually. So I actually thought he was at 154. That's
oh yeah,
interesting.
gotcha. Yeah, Rodolfo
Yeah,
Rivera says, whenever I see Troy Isley, I can't help but think of the Isley brothers. Isley,
yeah.
well, last name. Yeah, without a doubt.
I was just
Certainly.
thinking about it. Actually, I was singing that song, one of their songs earlier today.
Summer breeze.
No, that one. It's called "Voyage to Atlantis." That one, really great song.
So yeah, so Saturday, yeah, that's something. But yeah, Saturday is pretty stacked as far as cars. As a matter of fact, there's too many of them, but too many to actually then watch because there's also a car on the zone, and this is going to be in San Antonio featuring Bam Rodriguez
Yeah,
making his return to the ring to take on Christian Gonzalez. Now, Bam Rodriguez is one of the most promising looking fighters in the sport right now, and he's a one that is worth the price of admission from what I've seen thus far. And I think he'll continue to get better, but he's already shown that he can compete at that world level without a doubt. And he's going to be returning to action here again. And so Rodriguez, Christian Gonzalez Hernandez, rather, this is going to be his 17th fight, and he is coming in on a pretty lengthy winning streak. He's lost once back in 2019. That being said, there's going to be the vacant WBO World Flyweight title on the line, so I'm sure he's going to bring it. He's out of Mexico. And Bam Rodriguez, as I mentioned, looks very promising. So I know that Bam is going to be on top of his game without a doubt. So I look forward to what Bam Rodriguez has to offer in making his return. So yeah, these are some big cards, relatively speaking, that are taking place on the same weekend. So you're gonna have Stevenson Yoshino, Fedora Mendoza, and Rodriguez Gonzalez all taking place. Indeed, you also have a Japanese card as
yeah.
well with the WBA Super World Flyweight champion Taraji. He's going to be fighting. Even Kiko Martinez is going to be in action on that card, as well as
Yeah.
Inoue is not the one Inoue.
Yeah, it's the most stacked weekend in this month, as far as I can see.
Yeah, yeah, and matter of fact, this the zone card is pretty stacked. Relatively speaking, it is pretty darn stacked because you also have MJ Akhmadaliev, who's going to be putting his super bantamweight title on the line, and then you have Raymond Ford taking on Jesse Magdaleno. Now, that should be a very interesting one. We'll see what Jesse Magdaleno looks like as far as if he's shaking off the cobwebs and all of that stuff, and he can turn back the hands of time and be that guy that looked very promising. And we also have Thomas Matisse in action, Israel Madrimov. So I like this DAZN card. It seems to be pretty stacked top to bottom as well.
Madrimov was very good, so yeah.
Yeah, good to see Madrimov back in action because, man, he was on a trajectory there for a minute, but some of the talking stuff has died down. Maybe it had to do with the Soro fights or whatever. I don't know. But he's definitely one to watch. I think he does have the goods.
Yeah. There are some really good fights. I was surprised positively when I saw this, how many we can expect next weekend, and hope none of them get canceled or anything.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, these are the zone card and the ESPN card especially are going to be pretty top tier. But there is a card on Friday on Showtime. I believe it might be a show about the new generation type deal. But also Thursday, this coming Thursday, the Zone is going to have a card featuring Angel Acosta taking on Cordova. That should be, which is I believe he's a Venezuelan fighter, or maybe Colombian, one of the two. But this should be a good one. Angel Acosta, usually an exciting fighter. So this should be interesting. Cordova is coming in 17-0-1. So that may be one worth checking out, getting that
And then after
courtesy
that,
card.
the weekend after that, we have the only fight I think that is big. Well, I can see on this schedule is Jean versus Joyce.
Yes, that is. The
Big
juggernaut
boys.
Joe Joyce returning back to action against Zhang Zhilei. This should be an
Mm,
interesting fight. We'll see. Thus far, Joyce has been able to withstand the biggest punches from pretty much anyone
yeah,
he's faced. We'll see if Zhang is able to trouble
he's
Joe Joyce with his power. I like
yeah,
Zhang Zhilei. That being
mm,
said, in
yeah,
this one, it's a tough call because I just think that Joe Joyce has shown that he has that elite world class chin, and he's fundamentally sound, more athletic than some may
mm,
give him credit for. So it is very interesting a matchup. But if I had to make a pick, I'd pick Joyce.
yeah,
I want to say decision because I feel like Jane is tough, of course.
yeah.
Uh,
He's dangerous, but yeah,
but
I
yeah,
think he does lack some fundamentals. I mean, you could see it against Herwich. He took many punches. He's
yeah,
got great chin, of course, but I mean, these guys are both behemoths, or however you call them. Really, I mean, Zhang. Oh man,
yeah,
huge, strong guy. He is not. I mean, this he is pretty. Joyce is pretty evenly meshed physically there. I mean, yeah, definitely.
oh
And
yeah, yeah.
also, when it comes to punching power, I think maybe Zhang hits even a little harder, maybe than Joyce. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. Yeah, you never know. So yeah,
I
that
mean,
should be
what he
interesting.
did to Hergovich, that was,
Yeah, he
wow.
answered a lot of questions in that fight, I would say. So it should be
Yeah.
very interesting. Michaela Mayer's going to be on the undercard, making a return. It's going to be at lightweight. So she's on there. Then
Oh,
also Denzel Bentley
okay.
is making a return as well. He gave Jonathan Alam Canoli a very good fight here several months
Mm,
back. So
yeah.
Rodolfo Rivera says Chris Arreola is still fighting. He's on the undercard
Mm,
of Pandora. Interesting, very interesting. Chris
for the
Arreola,
money.
yeah,
Just for the money, man.
just power to you. You gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta
Yeah,
do
he's
what
gotta eat. He's gotta eat too.
yeah, right,
That
right.
was the problem he
Like I
always
got a
had.
family to feed. But yeah, eating was a problem, right?
Yeah, eating was his main problem. Not knowing when to stop. Same with as with Riddick Bowe.
So yeah, so Areola's still out there. I don't think he's gonna make any legitimate run towards the top of heavyweight division. So yeah, he's just kind of fighting at this point, I would say. Even though he did give Andy Ruiz a pretty decent fight, but we know that Andy Ruiz, much like Areola, is one who has a problem with eating as well, and the training side at times, I guess you can say, and showing up. Even though he looked
Yeah,
good against, he did look good against Luis Ortiz. So we'll see what happens as far as Chris
Ariola.
Areola moving forward.
Yeah.
And as Rodolfo Rivera Jr. says, crazy how the Ryan Garcia versus Tank fight is almost here.
Oh
Yep,
yeah,
yep,
that's one. Yeah, that's on the 22nd, right? Yeah,
yep. It's a lot of buzz been built up behind that. I haven't looked into what the undercard is.
20 days to go.
I need to look into.
Yeah, that fight will. I mean, that's an important fight. Whoever wins that, wow, he will
So
just
yeah,
have the
they're
keys.
looking to gain supremacy at 135,
Yeah,
I guess you can say, but I don't know. It's a catch weight fight.
yeah,
So
it will answer questions about both guys. Yeah.
yeah, I don't see what the undercard has to offer. At least on BoxRec, they have no fights listed under there. I'm sure there are gonna be fights. Let me see. Uh, Tank versus Garcia undercard, because this is a pay-per-view. This is a pay-per-view, so I wanna see what is actually going to be on this undercard and see if Jerron Ennis may be on there. Let me see.
Pay-per-view. Pay-per-view. Sounds like pay-per-view. Too much. A view on paper.
Yeah, I see this thing from Boxing News 24/7. It says William Zepeda and Jerron Boots Ennis to feature on the Devontae Davis undercard, and Ryan Garcia. I was thinking they were going to take on each other, but Zepeda, he's like a division down. So also Boots Ennis is taking on Romian Vila, who is he's a big punching fighter. He got power. I've seen him fight a couple times.
Who beat Rashidi Ellis.
Yeah, that is right.
Popped his gravy train.
He did. So yeah, apparently that is happening. I don't see it listed on Box Rec or anything, but if that fight happens, that should be a very good one. I'd imagine that would be the co-main event. Both of them recently fought. For Ennis, he got the victory, but he had some trouble, especially early on, catching up with his opponent, who Karen something. I forget where he's from, but he made Ennis work to get every punch. I tell you that. And
maybe Armenian. Is he a guy?
Yeah.
Karen, he must be Armenian then. Yeah, I think that's an Armenian male name.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, he might be that. But yeah, Ennis.
I love Armenian fighters. They are so tough, and they really love a good brawl.
This guy moved well, so Ennis had trouble finding him at times. He won the fight, of course, but he just wasn't able to put on that showcase that they thought with him being the co-feature on that Tank with Hector Garcia.
Right.
I'm sure he's going to want to bounce back in a major way, and Villa is going to be the opponent to bring it to him. So hopefully that fight happens. I think that has the potential of being the fight of the night right there.
Well, yeah, by the way, bringing us back all the way to the start, I was just like, did you see what happened? I didn't really get what happened at the end of Joshua fight. He got into a melee with some. Was that a member of Franklin's entourage or what happened?
What it was is Joshua. He did this in the previous round, I believe, as well. Was as Franklin was walking back, he kind of used his glove and just pushed his head. This is after the fight was over. So Franklin walked up on him or whatever. And then Joshua grabbed him and they're backing up. Then one of Franklin's second or something was about to hop in the ring, and then they had to come break everything up or whatever. But they ultimately did hop in the ring, but they broke all the stuff up. But it was because of Joshua trying to sun Jermaine Franklin like that. He did that a few times. So yeah, it was a little shoving match, and then they eventually restored order. And Joshua, he shook his hand apparently after the end of or after the thing was announced or something like that. But he had a second there.
He really started. He's been acting strangely, like ever since he lost to Usyk first time.
Yeah,
or maybe before that. I'm not sure.
He's trying to build himself back up, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know that when that press conference before the second Usyk fight, he was just sitting there and doing this.
Yeah.
Like he was trying to look as intimidating as possible. Just
Joshua said, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." He's like, "I'm trying to make a statement here."
Mr. Nice.
He tried to go after this one guy backstage after that Usyk fight who told him to be professional. He was an older guy. Joshua was mad, of course. It was funny.
I don't think being too nice was his problem before. I think it's simply I mean, he just lost to guys that that could beat him, simple as that, had the tools like these, and
Yeah, he needs. He's trying to find himself. He's working with Derek James, Roderick Garcia. I'd imagine he's going to continue to work with Derek James since he got this win, and he wants to get back to that Joshua of old. But the dynamic can change when you become a global star or a global superstar, rather. Even
Right.
and you're getting that good money and all that stuff, and that hunger that took you to the top. Some of it fades away a bit, I'd imagine, or at least it seems to be the case with him. And while he's, doing the work from a physical standpoint, mentally, I think that same edge he had isn't there, and that may be ultimately the
Yeah, I
reason
think
he's going through this kind of refining or
he definitely
reimagining of himself.
lacks some kind of toughness in here, that people like Fury have and Usyk and even Wilder, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. But he
yeah,
doesn't have that. Whether whether if he's too nice, I don't know. But he's got the physical part, right?
yeah,
He
yeah,
can
yeah,
move and throw punches well, and has the power and all that. But when it comes to that, it's the same like with Teddy Atlas said about Tyson.
oh yeah,
Whenever there was something to overcome, he could do it, and that's the same with Joshua. I would say just exactly the
yeah.
same thing, except that Joshua is well, I well, I don't know if there's any difference really there. I mean,
Well,
yeah,
physically, he's bigger.
yeah, that's of course the big difference, and you know, eh, but both kind of lost to a guy who was really like nobody could have ever, I mean, expected Reese to beat
Yeah, right,
Joshua and
right.
to stop him by. And the same with Buster Douglas, knocked out Tyson 10 rounds. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody was like, oh, he's gonna fight that guy. Who's he? Like, Buster Douglas, and nobody.
yeah. Because up to that point where he had lost to Joseph Parker, which of course is the common opponent, and Reed hadn't really looked impressive. And hey, he put it all together against Anthony Joshua.
Yeah,
Short notice at that, because it was originally going to be Jarrell Miller, and mine what a loss that was for Jarrell Miller in terms of popping on those tests and all that. Just to think he could have had that opportunity to upset the apple cart.
oh yeah, he could have done it. I think so. I mean, he has
Look
what?
how far he's fallen since then.
Yeah, Joel. It seems at least he's lost some weight, maybe some weight, not a lot.
Yeah, he
Well,
was back
anyway,
over 300 pounds in his last fight. So Rodolfo says, yeah, Joshua's going to have to build himself back up, especially since he is with a new trainer again. Yeah, yeah.
oh yeah,
So him and
definitely.
Derek James, they'll work some things. But yeah, it's all going to be dependent on who he takes on next. So,
Yeah, Joshua was just. I mean, yeah. There's something definitely that he always liked, but you couldn't see it because. And why didn't he fight Wilder when he was supposed to?
yeah,
That's
that would
the
have been a
that's,
huge fight.
yeah.
Huge. I think that
You
would have
know,
been the top fight in boxing.
I don't think it was his choice. I think it was more Eddie Hearn who knew that that was a too dangerous fight, probably for Joshua. Didn't want him to lose yet, and he was like, maybe after if he, beat win a little few more titles, beat a few more big names,
Man, to
maybe
think
then.
about that, that's crazy. Because I think that fight would have sold out, of course, and I think it would have did over 1 million pay-per-view buys potentially.
Wow, it would have been huge. I
It
mean,
would have been
Fury,
huge.
that was a big fight too. But Fury was, had come back after 2.5 years, and nobody was expecting him to do well. And
Yeah, it would have been the biggest fight in the sport for a minute. The
yeah,
last
no,
over 1 million pay-per-view was actually Tyson against Roy Jones in that Triller
and
thing.
the big irony is that neither Fury, Wilder or Joshua now holds a world title, a world belt.
Yeah, right.
Wow, man, it's
Yeah,
in the hands of a Ukrainian and Gypsy King.
Yeah, it's crazy how things turn out. And yeah,
Yeah.
Tyson Fury, we got to see what he is actually interested in doing.
And
Uh,
he is so has been such a disappointment, man. I mean, after all that talk against Joshua not fighting him, you'd think that he would fight anybody, whoever he had to, or you know. And now he's like, oh no, I'm just gonna fight Chisora. Well, because he makes sense, we already fought twice, and
yeah,
yeah,
right.
and then the way he went off on that guy. Have you seen that podcast? It's
Oh no,
True
you
George.
you had mentioned it. I had to check it
Yeah,
out.
and he just mentioned. I think Jordy mentioned that the quality of his opponents and why he didn't fight Usyk. No, it wasn't that. It was something about that quality of his opponent. He was like completely lost it. Fury was, you a big docile. he
I
was,
had to check that out.
and he was like just laughing. This guy, what else is he gonna do?
Yeah, right.
You don't know nothing. You're just a big docile, mate. I'm the Gypsy
You
King.
big
I'm the
docile.
greatest. Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, Fury is the best in the world," but come on, look at it. Apart from Vladimir Klitschko, who was old, let's face it, already at the end of his career, and Wilder, who else has he beat? Really?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, I did see this with True Jordy. Yeah,
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 I
I saw
mean,
a picture of
he's best.
nobody because nobody wanted to see Chisora 3.
Yeah, I think his third best win probably is against Cunningham. Actually,
Yeah,
Steve
right. That
Cunningham.
is. I mean, that is. Yeah, Klitschko, Cunningham, Wilder. Those are the best wins, without a doubt.
Yeah, and then
Yes.
maybe Wallin.
The
Yeah.
Otto Valine.
Well, he was not a big name, but it still proved to be a good fighter. And
Mm-hmm. I still need to watch that fight in its entirety. I've seen pieces of it.
yeah,
I'll
and
do that.
before that was Chisora. The only big name that he fought, I think it was Chisora. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
And
so yeah,
Chisora was,
he needs to do something,
yeah,
and of course he's shouldering the blame for this fight not happening because everything was seemingly in his favor already. So
hmm,
it's kind of crazy because I know Usyk is
yeah.
down.
He's so unpredictable. I don't get it. I mean, why wouldn't he fight Usyk? Or I hope that he now fights Joshua at least.
Yeah, somebody, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because he
Otherwise,
must. Yeah, you don't want to retire like that. You must at least fight one more big name in your era. That was prime when you beat them, not Klitschko. Forget him. He was not, prime.
yeah, and that was a ugly fight.
Yeah, very bad.
Definitely
And
not rewatchable.
yeah, and I mean, Klitschko was like fighting scared for 9 rounds or something.
Yeah,
Just,
right.
just moving, didn't know what to do with it exactly. So yeah, I mean, and Wilder definitely those are his by far best. I mean, greatest wins.
Hmm.
Wilder and Joshua
So yeah,
still
I give
has.
it. Yeah, I give it to that. Give that to him. Certainly, those Wilder wins,
Yeah,
especially that last fight, lived up to. It
but
exceeded the expectations. Yeah, actually.
yeah, but Wilder was very beatable, especially for
Yeah.
Fury. I mean, anybody
Right.
who could take his punches, I mean, well enough, and and who was big enough, strong enough, and could also even knock him out, which he did twice. That's the guy who beats Wilder. Doesn't have to be the best of the best, out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're right. So very interesting. Very interesting stuff. So a lot to be desired. We'll see how things continue to materialize. We've been going at it an hour and a half, a little over actually.
yeah,
It's
nice.
about that time. Let's get ready to
We did,
roll.
we did all right.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. So yeah, of
Hmm.
course, we'll be back when the time comes. Hyphy, respectfully, that AJ Franklin fight last night was another lackluster heavyweight fight. I won't even watch the highlights of that fight. I feel you, Hyphy. Yeah, you could certainly, if someone hadn't seen it and they asked me, I'd tell them, yeah, you'd be fine just watching the highlight video because, yeah, that's
Yeah,
should cover all of the action. There
it was
wasn't a
just
ton of
a rough
stuff to
fight.
write home about. But you're right,
Yeah,
Heidi. It's very much was not anything that will prove to be memorable. And Joshua
mm.
even acknowledged such in the interview post fight as well. So,
Yeah, it was just a rough and tough tumble fight. And Joshua did a lot of that, also holding, grabbing. And
yeah,
that
at one
didn't.
point, yeah, there towards the tail end, yeah, that holding was crazy. They're like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So we need to see him in there with someone who was going to push him. And I think Franklin just didn't have the type of power to trouble him.
Mm.
And of course,
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
yeah,
even Usyk hits harder than Franklin.
yeah. And as Hyphy says to at Rodolfo Rivera Jr., that is a bad look to say that was supposed to be about between the two top heavyweights. Yes, indeed. Yes,
I
indeed.
mean, Usyk is so strong, man. He's freakishly strong,
Yeah,
actually. Because when you see the first fight, especially what he was doing to Joshua, there, he was really kicking his ass from the get go,
yeah,
really. And I
yeah.
didn't expect him to fight like that.
No, you're right. Franklin, to his credit, he came in shape, especially compared to his
Yeah.
last fight, but he wasn't a full-time fighter in his last fight. It was short notice against Dillian White. But he did look like he hit the gym and really put in some work. But yeah, certainly that is not the premier matchup. We need to see these premier matchups. And the heavyweight division has
Next.
suffered. It has suffered from us not being able to get him. When Joshua, Wilder, and Fury with them on the scene, we wanted to see a combination of all of them fighting. We've only thus far got Tyson Fury versus Wilder, but we haven't been able to catch him in there with Anthony Joshua, nor Anthony Joshua with Tyson Fury, which is a disappointment considering, yeah, they were going to be at their top value just a few years back, and now the value of them isn't going to quite be the same, though they'll still be good and we'll still watch, but man, there was a point
Hmm.
where those were the heavyweight division is the marquee division, and these were going to be the bigger fights, the biggest fights in the sport. That Joshua Wilder would have been bigger than Crawford Spence, and
Hmm.
then of course Joshua Fury, same thing. Depending on how things materialize, of course Deontay Wilder versus Fury might have looked even different, but of course yeah, it didn't materialize as such, much like
Hmm.
Crawford
I
Spence
mean,
isn't materializing, and much like we're just now
yeah,
getting Davis versus Garcia, and none of the other top 135ers have fought like that. But we are getting Haney versus Lomachenko, so that's a good one.
yeah, at least, yeah. I hope that can be also the. I mean, I hope Lomachenko has still enough in him to really produce a good, if not great performance, then at
Yeah, it's
least
gonna be tough. It'll be
good
tough
one. Yeah,
because Haney's young and he's already had been putting in that work, and I think
yeah,
him,
he's
yeah, him
he's got.
turning pro over there in Mexico. I mean, I think that helped him too.
Yeah, he's been much less big fights so far, and yeah, but I don't. I think anything can happen in that fight anyway.
Yeah, not counting
Yeah,
Lomachenko out because we know when he's on games he can destroy a fighter.
yeah,
But
he's just.
yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. It's gonna be good. It should be good at least. But we'll see
Yep.
what happens. But cool. All right, folks. Yeah, we appreciate you dropping in. Shout out Rodolfo Rivera Jr. Shout out Hyphy. Shout out my mom. Shout out to Rand Roberto. Anyone else listening on the replay, and of course, we'll be back here next week to talk about it. A lot of good action. We were going over it, so we look forward to that. Any last words there, Boz?
Well, next broadcast will probably be a longer one because we'll have more fights to talk about.
Oh yeah,
More
certainly.
big fights.
Certainly
All right.
we will. But cool.
Peace.
Rodolfo Rivera. So we appreciate you dropping in again, buddy. We'll chat, of course.
Yeah.
All right,
great.
everyone.
Oh.
Enjoy your weekend.